This week's Strong Talk podcast is brought to you by Renaissance Periodization. Go to renaissanceperiodization.com, which proves that science is stronger. From their popular diet templates to training templates to ebooks, skip all the fad diets, all the misinformation out there. This is the diet I follow myself, Kalle Beck. I have my clients follow this. It just takes all the guesswork, and it's simple, easy to follow way. Go to renaissanceperiodization.com and follow them at RP Strength online. This week's Strong Talk podcast is brought to you by Renaissance Periodization. Go to renaissanceperiodization.com, which proves that science is stronger. From their popular diet templates to training templates to ebooks, skip all the fad diets, all the misinformation out there. This is the diet I follow myself, Kalle Beck. I have my clients follow this. It just takes all the guesswork, and it's simple, easy to follow way. Go to renaissanceperiodization.com and follow them at RP Strength online. We're also brought to you by startingstrongman.com. Go to startingstrongman.com for all the latest news and information on the sport of strongman and for strongman training. Go to store.startingstrongman.com for from training gear, knee sleeves, wraps. We got them from Cerberus, SBD, Spud Inc. We got ebooks like The Cube Method and Built by Mike Westerling. We got everything you need to train for strongman. The truck pull simulator, training templates. Check out our training templates, proven programming for the sport of strongman at just $15 a month. But if you use the code STRONGTALK, it's just $10 a month. Go to store.startingstrongman.com for all of your strongman needs. Go to startingstrongman.com/sponsors to support companies that support strongman and support us and support the Strong Talk podcast, so you get these episodes every week. Like SBD USA, SBDUSA.com, Strength Shop USA for all your strongman equipment needs, KabukiStrength.com for all products like the Duffalo bar, the shoulder rock, and you can use code SS10 to save 10% at KabukiStrength.com. Go to barbellapparel.com for the best fitting jeans for strong people such as yourself, and use code StartingStrongman to save 10%. If you'd like to support Starting Strongman, please go to startingstrongman.com/sponsors. Click at the bottom of the page. You can click the Amazon and Rogue banners before doing your shopping. We get a small percentage of the sale, and it helps keep Starting Strongman and the Strong Talk podcast going. Really appreciate it. Again, go to startingstrongman.com/sponsors for all of the great companies that help. Welcome to another episode of the Strong Talk podcast. I'm Kalle Beck, joined by Mike Gill. How we doing today, Mike?
Man, we're good. We had a little bit of warmer weather here in Florida. We actually caught a little winter, and it's now raining, which I'm just sick of. I miss my sunshine.
Yeah, it's the same here. I bragged, out here in California, I bragged about, being able to train outside in January. Then it's done nothing but rain since. So that's what I get. But can't complain. We want to talk, we've been talking a bit about just kind of, you've had a good strongman career. You're active again, more on the, the back end. Like I am, getting athlete interviews and, publishing articles and all that, which, there's not that many people that do it. So we want to have a little conversation on the, current state of strongman. And, that's something I get asked a lot about on this podcast, is like topics or something, is like how to grow the sport. Right. So I figure we can have a nice discussion on all that. But I want to get a little bit of background, because I remember following your training back when, we like the old Maroon Day Muscle Forum days. And I always found it quite intriguing. I remember reading your training log on there. I think it was when you're going for your, 105K, 231 lightweight pro at the time, however you want to call it, pro card. And especially back then, you really had your, I feel like it's caught on a lot more now, but at the time, this is at least 5 years ago, it was a lot different structure of training than everyone else was doing. It seemed a lot more deliberate. You're doing a lot of, longer distance medleys with a lighter weight and more like specific event work leading up to it versus, it seemed like everyone back then just did I do powerlifting, like West Side was the thing. Then I do the events on the weekend. So that's what stood out for me. So just get a little background on like your, like where you learned your training and, how you kind of got to, have a more deliberate approach with strongman.
So yeah, I took really a different look at the whole thing because I felt I got into strongman later in life. I was like 34 when I started it, and I knew my time was going to be limited. I also have a really varied sports background. I've been lifting seriously my entire life, but I've also run a lot of track. I've done triathlons. Everything in those fields is always completely measured. So I took a look and I said, well, what are the best athletes ever? What have they done? And it was a lot of Bulgarian, Soviet, Eastern Bloc style programming, low volume, working with triples and frequent repetition of those exercises. So I said, I've got to get really good in a short period of time. So how do I do that? And the method I've kind of come up with, and that I still program today, is just a few work sets on the given exercises. Say you are going to do log and you're going to squat and do some pull-ups in a single day. You really only do like 3 work sets of each. They're going to be near maximum weight. Maybe if you've got a press for reps coming up, you're going to do 1 rep set at the end. But you do those things more often. You train your anaerobic system frequently to stay in top shape all the time. The events I had coming up, I didn't want to put any time into doing a yoke walk or tire flip if I had farmer's carry and a Husafel coming up. I just didn't see the investment in that time. So I would sharpen those skills coming right into a contest. And it really served me well, but that only works for athletes who are going to spend the time on recovery.
Yeah, they're spending the time on their recovery and they have some sort of athletic base to already built up, I'd say.
Yeah. I didn't have to learn a lot of the movements. The only thing I really did was specifically hire Olympic lifting coach John Schweikart in Buffalo, New York, and he taught me how to jerk. And I am still going to tell people day in and day out, stop push pressing and start jerking the axle and the log. It's a skill to learn, but you will not put heavier weight over your head really any other way. It's designed of the sport. I know a lot of guys don't like it because it's athletic. It's uncomfortable. But, I think it's proven in Rob. Andrew Clayton's a big split jerker on most of his stuff. And if you get under the weight and lock it out, it's a lot easier than trying to, bench press it over your head. It just doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, I think, if you spend the time to learn it, I think that, eventually it has to catch on at some point where more weight's put up with the jerk. It's just a more efficient movement.
Yeah.
But...
it is. People don't like to learn it because you're gonna take the top end off your press. There's gonna be a period where all of a sudden you're going, well, I can push press 300, but I can only jerk right now, 275. And guys have a hard time taking 2 steps back to take 10 steps forward. And I always tell them, look, once you get the feel of a jerk, you're gonna wonder why you haven't been doing it your whole life, because it's magic when you hit the right jerk. And actually, one of the guys that really got me motivated into doing the jerk was Jesse Marunde. And he had posted a video on Marunde muscle of him at night in the middle of a field, spot jerking 495. I must have watched it 100 times. It was absolutely crazy. It was up there, and him and the guys just went out in the woods apparently and did this. And at the time, going back over 10 years, no one was putting 495 over their head anyway, any shape, anyhow, in strongman. So that was one of the most impressive lists at the time. And I'm like, well, there's the key right there.
Yeah, especially if you don't happen to, be the most massive person built. If you can be built like Z or Oberst or someone, and you have to think about how much time they spent building up, their shoulders and upper body mass to do that. You have more to press off of and do that kind of, push into a standing slight bench. But, for the mortal person, there's a limit to it. It only makes sense. It's more efficient. I feel like there's a couple downsides to it. Is that it varies from implement to implement, but the basics are there that you're going to apply from one to the other. But that affects your push press too. If this log's a little more off balance or what, I've been to shows just doing a push press where 270 or something on mine I might do for 5, and that one I'm struggling to get 1. I had plenty of. It's just that's the nature of the sport. It's not standardized.
Yeah, you've got to have that instant adaptation. Well, you're going to see it. I wrote about this 10 years ago. I talked to Steve McDonald extensively about it. Of when do you think the sport's going to get more standardized? And he was competing a lot in the IFSA over in Europe, and they use the same equipment all the time. And he's like, that wasn't really strongman, but that's where it's going. And then you just see like WSM signed Rogue. They're going to be their official, provider of equipment. So all those guys are going to be used to using that, and that's going to bleed down. It always does. Guys want to train with what the pros train. So, you're going to see more standard equipment. I like to see standard contests. I like to see crazy contests. I like to see stuff that's homemade maybe every once in a while or a little bit different in design, because it evens the playing field a little bit more when you get to the contest.
Yeah, I feel like people can become too much of a tactician if everything's exactly the same, and then you're less testing who's the strongest in a way. It's who's the most skilled, which of course that's going to be a factor no matter what. But it's kind of finding that right blend, because that's kind of like the first strongman contests when they did it. No one touched it, so they didn't use barbells and all the traditional things because people already trained on those. They're like, let's throw these random objects and see what everyone can do. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact Rogue, being the equipment provider for World's Strongest Man, has. How involved is that? Like, I feel like a lot of people saw that, then they see Rogue. All they took was Rogue is sponsoring World's Strongest Man. Like Corgenics or whatever is the title sponsor this last year, which has just been airing. Which that's not really what it is from what I can understand. It's that they're the equipment sponsor. So
yeah, that's what I've gotten out of their press releases, which is, I think, mainly just going to be logs, maybe yokes, and they might design specific stuff, especially just for WSM. So, you'll see probably one-offs at that show, which would make a lot of sense, but that name's going to be on TV, and I think you'll get a lot more bleed of Rogue going into, again, it's already there, but continuing with the CrossFit line. Because if a CrossFit gym is going to add a strongman section, they're probably going to put in Rogue, because that's what everybody's going to be familiar with and have seen.
A little technical difficulty. Hopefully everything's set now, but I was talking with Mike about what I like to, I think it's important to look at how Rogue has supplied the equipment for CrossFit, because there's been a lot of one-off stuff that they've done that they've maybe sold the stuff off at the CrossFit Games, but not like housed in their warehouse to send out. And I could see similar being done with World's Strongest Man, where they're kind of using it as a showcase, like, look what we can build, but not necessarily what we're going to sell. Like, they're not going to, the size of the rigs that they make for the CrossFit Games, I don't think most affiliates have a tennis, they have a tennis stadium to fill, so it's not really applicable,
right? Yeah,
but it just shows huge. It shows what they're capable of. So, and I feel like it would be cool if similar is done with strongman, just making everything look a little bit more grand. Because I don't know about you, but watching this last year, it looked less impressive with a lot of the equipment. Like, there was some cool stuff, but like. For me, using just like normal bumper plates on the bar, that's kind of going a step back as far as making equipment showy.
Well, that's one of my number one things with a contest, and this is not always possible to do, but the promoters need to do every single thing they can to make it visually appealing to an audience. And the average Joe has no concept of a bar filled with plates. It just makes no sense to them. So when you could make a bumper plate out of a wagon wheel, or, you know, make it look different, again, you're hitting in that visual impact, like you said, that's going to get people to watch and get them excited. Oh my God, look at that. You know, it's the safe press that they used to do on Worlds. I haven't seen that since Marius, you know. That's visually impressive. People understand a safe, what it weighs. But a bumper plate, that's just a big fat plate. You know, it's boring.
Yeah, and you can't tell the difference between, you know, one was like, what, 1047 or so Eddie Hall did, and, you know, someone who got 6 with 930. Like, it looks the same.
Yeah, it totally looks identical. So
I can't tell.
The crowd can't get into it.
I mean,
yeah.
They
start doing that counting thing.
And, you know, I was getting sent, you know, shitty cell phone footage. There's a guy out there that was from Africa, and he was sending me on like WhatsApp the video. I'm like, and I'm going to post them, and I'm like, I don't know if this was Thor's 1014 attempt, or, and like, I'm sitting there and, you know, it's all grainy, and, you know, it's been, I was like, you know, I can't tell. So, you know, and I'm, you know, I care about this. I'm not just, you know, someone, you know, clicking through the channel on Christmas Day because you don't know what to watch with your family you can all agree on, and you know, you're not going to say it. And here's another thought I had, which I want to run by you, is, you know, a lot of people, they complain about, you know, World's Strongest Man is like this, it's not shown. I'm not even going to get into like the whole why it's not live streamed or any of that stuff, but I had the thought where I feel like World's Strongest Man really isn't for us, right? It's for people to see it, to become more of us, as I mean, like, you know, like a hardcore fan, or you know, someone who's going to compete at some level. It's kind of just showcasing strongman to the world in a way, but like the actual competition and how it's structured isn't for us.
No, it's definitely not a production for the strongman. Look, that's what started it. It's a different thing. It is to spread the love of the sport. And, you know, I just spent 3 days with Kalle and Bryce's production team, the guys who make World's Strongest Man, what I called World's Strongest Masters. And, you know, we just went over the fact that you cannot make that production streamable, broadcast friendly, and have it look like it has looked for the last 30 years. So if you want a live event, that's going to be the Arnold. If you want to watch a great produced strongman event, obviously it's going to be World's Strongest Man. They're two totally different things. Ideally, you'd love something that could be broadcast live and streamed to the world and was visually appealing, but it's very, very hard to do with the sport. It is super difficult. It's not a live-friendly sport.
Yeah, I feel like it was done pretty well with like some of the other shows they've done, like Europe's or Giants Live. That's about as good as it can get. I don't see really too much that could be improved upon from there. They kept everyone entertained. But yeah, I think it just made like all the little things that, you know, can bug you as a fan, or, you know, I see a lot of people posting about, like, in the Starting Strongman group, is it made it a lot easier for me when I just like thought about it like that. Like, no, it's not, like, I'll enjoy watching it, but it's not going to be what I want it to be, because that's not really its best use either, I don't think. Like, it's clearly it's clearly showed, you know, that it works that way.
Well, it's my lead-in when I meet somebody and they ask, "What do you do?" And I say, "Well, I'm a former strongman athlete, and now I'm a coach, writer, and broadcaster." And there's that look of like, which one's strongman? Because they're looking at me, and it's obvious that I lift weights, but, you know, is he a bodybuilder? Does he bench press? So I immediately go to World's Strongest Man, you know, and I say, you know, you've seen it on TV where the guys are lifting stones and flipping cars. And clicks like that because everyone watches World's Strongest Man what's on. It just gets a ton of views because it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and it's set up in a way where you can watch 10 minutes of it and then go about your day, which is probably, I'd say, how the majority of the views happen. I don't think anyone's watching the entire 8-hour marathon other than, you know, a handful of us. But, you know, everyone watched. They watched it for a segment. They saw, you know, one group of guys go through the squat event, and then they go, wow, that was crazy, and then they move on to something else and maybe click back through. But
it's something that can hold your attention for the day, and for most people it'll hold it for 10 minutes or at least one episode, but it's going to be on all day, so they can flip back and forth. They get tired of watching the Christmas special or whatever on. They know they've got this sideshow, almost vaudevillian type thing going on, and they can just tune to it real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that watch that, a dozen or so each time kind of go, I want to know way more about that. And then they kind of, they go down the rabbit hole like I did. I'm sure like you did at some point. And you end up getting a little bit obsessed with it and making it a part of your lifestyle. And I think that's the best use for World's Strongest Man there is.
I got lucky to get into the sport because exactly my point is I was watching it on Christmas with my then wife, Lisa, at the time. And, I had said, well, man, I've done powerlifting and bodybuilding and all these other sports. And I said, I really think I would have been great at strongman. And she kind of laughed, and she's like, yeah, right. Those dudes are like some of the best athletes on the planet. I'm like, no, I definitely think I could do that. She's like, well, go find some equipment and train, because I don't think you could. Like that type of thing. And lucky enough, there was strongman equipment and a strongman pro in Buffalo, Glenn Caves at the time. And him and I hit up a friendship and a training group, and I was in almost immediately. Like I got poisoned, you got bit and you got poisoned, and that was it. Like the world changed, the focus of my training changed, the gyms I owned changed, everything changed overnight once I got into that in 2005. It just was a completely different world for me, because the sport was then just opening up. The lightweight pro category had been around for a year or two. There were starting to be contests, at least one in your state every year, so you could drive to something. And it's grown so rapidly now in the last, I'd say, 5 years, because of what happened in the mid 2000s. There was some foundational work with YouTube. I had I got paid to write, I think, before anybody else in strongman. My blog was Chasing Kaz. I don't know if anybody's going to remember that, but one of my friends is Tucker Max, who wrote I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, and they made that into a movie. It was a 3-year New York Times bestseller, and he started this project with me, and I got paid to write about strongman, and no one else was doing that. Now, it wasn't much money, but it was way fun, and it got people into the sport. And then the other thing I always give credit to, which you already have, is Maroon Day Muscle. If that wasn't here, I don't know if we'd be talking right now. I honestly don't.
No, absolutely not. It was huge, and it's still around. That's the thing. People go, I wish everything was like that. I'm like, then go use it. It's still there. Like,
it's still there.
Yeah.
But I would obsessively check that throughout the day.
All day.
It was crazy. Did somebody write something? Did somebody write something? Who's got a view on this? Who's thinking about that? It was nuts. And then I wanted to see, like, okay, are guys putting up who's competing yet? Is there a competitors list? And is there going to be somebody there? It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was because it was instant, but you didn't have a phone in your pocket, so you had to stop what you're doing, get on your computer, refresh it, check it. It was a lot different.
Yeah, with my job, I drove around from like field to field, and I had like the remote, internet card on my laptop, because I'd have to, do some stuff for work. So every time I'd stop, I'd like recheck like all those kind of websites, and even like some of the, T-Nation stuff, like in my truck, like way ahead. Like I was obsessed with checking social media before it was really an epidemic. It's awful. Now I need to figure out how to curb all this and, go about my life. But when you say that you started writing, you're getting paid for strongman, I wasn't aware of that. Like what exactly were you doing? You said it was a project, but what exactly was it?
There was a number of websites he had started, and he partnered with the authors. And so I was writing this in conjunction with Ben Hansen, and we probably wrote a total of 10 blogs. And they were edited by Nils Parker, who works with Ryan Holiday. I mean, these guys are big time now. and I had access to them, which was really cool. So I'd write a piece. Nils would take and destroy it and tear it apart and then come back to me, and I'd have to rewrite it and fix it. So that's where I really learned how to refinish my writing. I started in college in political science, so I was used to writing 20, 30-page papers. So I just had to learn how to tell a story better, and they taught me that. So I basically wrote the story of my beginnings and my journey into strongman. It was almost a memoirs of my first 2 or 3 years in the sport, even as I was going through them. And it gained a lot of traction, but the audience still wasn't there. And then Tucker wound up closing the whole thing down once his book got so big and he got involved in other projects. So, there was a lapse in my writing for a while, but Chasing Cavs was fun. It was professionally produced website. We had banners, ad traffic. There was stuff driven to it. And, like a lot of things in the mid 2000s, there was a lot of experimenting as to how are we going to get content to people? Are they going to pay for it? Are we going to give it to them for free? Are there going to be ads? It's all come down to algorithms and science now. But just 10 years ago, it was still a guessing game. So it was like, what material are people going to write, and is somebody going to actually want to read? You've got to have consumable content. It has to be interesting, and not just interesting to the athletes. Someone has to look at that and actually put their eyes on it for a few seconds and be able to relate to it, even if they've never done strongman before. And that's how you get clicks.
Yeah, you said I still feel like it's always changing, system with what gets, what gets some traction and what doesn't. I think it's always going to be a guessing game. We have an idea, but I remember reading, some of the Chasing Cavs stuff for sure. I can briefly think of like the banner, like the layout in my mind. But yeah, I used to look for everything on this, and that was why I started doing some of my own stuff, because I found, and I think it's a important point for the aspiring athletes out there, because a lot of people they get up in the sport, they win some contests, they go, okay, now what? I accomplished all this stuff, but you can look at someone who's been very successful, building up a storyline and consumable content, and then following through on it, like Eddie Hall. But if all he did was just win World's Strongest Man, he'd still be a mechanic.
Right.
Totally. He built a product, and that product's himself, but he built it up it seemed like there was a deliberate plan and a lot of stuff in place. But if that's really what someone wants to do, that's what they need to do. They need to come up with a plan and have something other than look at this trophy, here's me deadlifting. So I always go ahead.
Eddie's been so smart about this, and part of the difference is that the audience is larger in Europe than it is in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so, now I'm with RA, and we have been a startup company for about 18 months, and we are just getting ready. I mean, everything I've been doing for them has just been, we're just getting footage, we're just getting pictures, we're just getting interviews to have them. We haven't released anything yet. Our website's still a shell, because this is going to be a large company, because we want to be able to put 5,000 people in a stadium to come watch a strongman production in the United States. And then you can have the opportunity here, like Eddie Hall has in Europe, if you work it smartly, to actually make a career out of this. If we don't get people coming to contests, there will never be any way for the athletes to make any money. And that needs to change. So we've got to put together productions with high values. We need to have a bridge with the European athletes and the American athletes, where we're going back and forth and trading and doing each other's shows, and having this just marketplace where people want to see these guys because they know them and they're familiar with them. If you have 10 guys on stage who are in freakishly good shape, and the 231 class, men's 231, and I would love to see like a men's 231 superstar collection and a middleweight women's on stage 20 of the best athletes, and we zip through it, and we have a 40 or a 20-person show done in 2.5 hours, people will sit and watch that like crazy. It would be amazing. I know they would.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very marketable. It's just it'll seem like common sense once it's done. It's just it's a lot of work to get that first, to show it's a viable product first. There's a lot of work that goes into that.
It's a huge amount of work. And I think what we're finding now as well is that we've been looking in the wrong place for sponsors. You're going to have your great sponsors out there for the athletes like Cerebras and SBD. Those guys are behind the athletes 100%. They're probably putting way more into their athletes than they're ever going to make back.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to get the protein powders. We're not going to get this. Been trying as an industry. People have been reaching out for these dollars, and they're not really there. So you've got to look at other venues, and one of those venues is beer. And I think we're gonna try to get some beer or alcohol involved as a sponsorship for this, just like they are with every other sport. This is a blue collar sport, man. And most of the guys I know will train hard and eat pretty clean, but suck back some beers on the weekend and go hunting and fix their own cars.
Yeah.
It's that type of sport, and we're the market for that, but we haven't been reached out to that. People just haven't gone in that direction. And I think the big dollars are going to flow from more traditional types of products into the sport. It's just got to be that way.
Well, it's just a bigger market in general,
huge.
For the amount of money they'd put into a show is seen as such a small investment compared to a protein powder, supplement company. Like that same investment is such a bigger, that could be all that they could sponsor that year, really, like what you'd need for to do a show like that.
If you ask a protein powder company, and I'm not talking about the largest ones, but the ones coming out, hey, can you give me $10,000 to sponsor a show? They'll look at you like you got four eyes. Literally, the larger beer producers and alcohol producers in the United States could spend $10,000 on literally a marketing foursome in a weekend. That is literally nothing for those guys to spend that kind of money. And once they start getting coverage and we're in venues and the product's available and you're going to see it not on TV. Again, this is all going to be internet. I don't think TV is going to be a good market for this. The internet is the new TV, and we're still in the baby stages.
Yeah, we're definitely in the baby stages of that. Like people just are waiting for World's Strongest Man to be on YouTube. And I feel like maybe that's
right.
That's because they're not going to watch it on TV. I feel like the only, and it was even on, they've played the finals on regular old CBS. CBS, not CBS Sports. Like that's in everyone's home. If you have a television, you can get that for free. But still people are like, well, when's it on YouTube? And you see someone uploads it, illegally, but it has like hundreds of thousands of views already, and that's not even being pushed by Worlds and the athletes or anything. So yeah, that's definitely where everything's going. It's just how does it exist in that space and be viable? That's the rub, right?
Yeah, I mean, literally, I don't watch television anymore. The only thing I watch is Vikings. That's the one TV show I watch. Everything else I consume off of Netflix or mostly YouTube, though. Mm-hmm. I find tidbits of what I want to watch, and I watch a lot of that. It's shows don't hold my interest anymore. I can't watch sitcoms. Network broadcasting is just boring. It's all paid services. HBO, Netflix, and then YouTube has that selective underground type of content that I look for.
Yeah, that's when I take a little break to eat lunch during my day between sending out programs to clients and updating all this stuff for starting Strongman, is I watch there's a couple car review and build kind of channels, and that's what I watch with my 30 minutes. And that's another niche, mm-hmm. and it's all on YouTube.
Yeah. And it can be amazing as the amount of views that people are getting, and yet it's still would be considered underground.
Uh-huh.
it's not getting its due yet, but it will. It's gonna happen. What we're gonna face, though, unfortunately and fortunately, is there's gonna be a glut of content that comes out where you're going to get people do 1 or 2 or 3 shows and they're really good, and then they stop. You know as well as I do, getting people to constantly produce their own content is really, really difficult. This is hard work. No one thinks this is work. This is a lot of work right here.
Yeah, you mean with the actual athletes coming out to their shows and putting stuff out there, or do you mean as a brand?
I mean, like, yeah, athletes are going to do it. People are going to want to get involved in YouTube. People want to get involved in all of this. People always ask me, hey, Mike, what can I do to promote myself? What can I do to promote myself? Make videos. Watch some of the CrossFit videos. You know, they're very successful. Do that. And then I'll see, okay, they'll give it a shot. They'll make a video. There's a video up this week. Mm-hmm. Then maybe 2 weeks go by, and then there's another video, and then I never see one. You know, in the last year and a half, I've written close to 70 strongman articles. And, dude, like, I can't tell you. Like, I am constantly looking for something to write about because I need to produce something. And people don't think. They think they can just put the camera on themselves and people are going to watch it. I don't want to watch you deadlift 500 pounds. You know, it's just not going to appeal unless I'm a specific fan to you. So you're only going to get 24 or 100 views, and then you're not going to be reinforced to do it again if you're only looking at how many views you get. The actual challenges for anybody who's producing content is just to continually do it consistently. Whether you get 1 view or 100,000, you just have to keep doing it week in and week out.
Yeah, it's a crazy place. I know, of course, I get the same question. And, you know, and people are asking me that. And I think you can really, that's pretty much all I did. I you know, wrote training blogs when no one cared. I put out videos when no one cared. And eventually people like cared a little bit, then maybe a little bit more. And then, you know, a little bit more, then it dies down. And, you know, I just kept doing it. You know, mm-hmm. I'm not even, I don't even know if it was well. Like that's the other thing. Like, but if no one else is doing it at all, then you're doing it better.
That's exactly right. But everybody, of course, wants to give you their opinion on how it is, you know, mm-hmm. and how you should be doing it. But, you know, it's a difficult thing to make this stuff. And I know a lot of guys have said, well, you know, I tried it and I'm not really comfortable in front of the camera, you know, or talking for long periods of time. I am. It's, you know, I've never been a different way, but that's a skill. That's a skill you have to learn. If you don't have it innately, you just need to continually work on it. You will get better at it. You know, it's not magic. It's just practice.
Yeah, I remember the first video I ever made where I was just like trying to answer a question, and now I have, you know, hundreds of those up there and I probably don't agree with anything I said from, you know, 3 years ago. I'm like, that's really bad, but that's not really the point either, you know? But mm-hmm. I must have started and stopped that recording 30 times.
Wow.
Cause you're just like, you start, and I'm like, well, I said that wrong. Well, I said that, you know, like, and I knew I didn't know how to like edit everything together, but, you know, every time I'm just like, well, this sucks. And then eventually I just did it, and it was 2 minutes, and I put it up, you know, and you get a little bit of positive affirmation, and you're like, all right, I'm going to try again to do that next week. And I'm going to make it work.
That's the thing, man. It has gotten so easy to do this. I do some side work that has nothing to do with strongman that I do some video and photo with. And I can do this stuff waiting 5 minutes now in my car for somebody. You know, I'm early to an appointment. So I can sit there. I can edit a video and upload it to YouTube. Mm-hmm. When I started doing that when YouTube started in 2007, I started putting videos up right away. And I would have to record them on digital videotape and then convert that into my computer, which would take, I don't know, a couple hours sometimes for a 3-minute video. And then I'd have to use this hacky software to try to chop it up. And then you would have to upload it to YouTube. For a 3-minute video, I probably had like 4 or 5 hours into some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was amazingly fast compared to what studios were doing. But now I make videos on my phone waiting at the DMV and send them up and I'm done in 10, 15 minutes. It's insane. So if you're really into this, there's no reason you shouldn't be producing content. There just isn't. It's so easy.
Well, I want to get into some of the stuff that, athletes, aspiring athletes, different people I've interviewed on here, et cetera, can do. But first, the other thing I could do is you can also just not do it. Like,
right.
Like that's the other thing. Like if it's hard and the juice probably isn't going to be worth the squeeze. I've told a lot of people, I'm like, man, just go compete, have fun, and have your day job. Like that's probably just the easier way to go. Like it really is.
Well, that's the thing. This isn't going to be a career for most people. I've made it into a career. You've made it into a career. Zach's done some pretty good work. But as far as being able to do this for a living, there's not going to be a big field for it, at least right now. So don't think of it like that. Maybe think of it as promoting yourself or just having some fun in the sport. But there's something about strongman, and I don't know what it is. I call it the Rocky IV mentality. Like everybody does it once or twice, and then they go to me, I want to get my pro card. I want to be a pro. And I'm like, okay, that's like doing 2 short course triathlons and saying like, I want to be a pro triathlete. I want to get up there. I want to do it. You have to have a ton of good genetics. You have to be the right physical size. You have to be able to train injured. You have to be able to train around your work. You have to be able to convince your girlfriend that you're not going on vacation this year because you're doing 5 mini trips. There are so many different things that go into making it up to that elite level that don't chase that right off the beginning, because you're going to be setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment. You really need to work the sport, especially nowadays, as almost a hobby that if you do get good enough at, you can look at that top level, but don't really expect anything to change even when that pro card hits your wallet. It just it actually limits the amount of contests you're going to compete in for most people.
Yeah, I've like a standard thing we do is if someone does get their pro card, basically they want a big show to get that, so I'll interview them and you talk, and I'll talk to them for an hour, and then it just seems like that's all they've been looking at, and they don't even know how it works once they get it, or what shows are going to do.
Right.
And then they'll message me and be like, hey, how do I do this show? I'm like, you don't know it? You haven't thought of this? All they've been looking is like, I get a pro card, then world's strongest man, I guess, like that, but that's not really how it works. It kind of resets back to zero. You're a pro. Now you're starting all over again.
Yeah. Now you've got to establish relationships with promoters. You want them to know who you are. If there's any open invites that you have to say, okay, I'm available to travel at a moment's notice. If you don't have a job with a flexible schedule, that's going to be a problem. If you're not willing to compete at a weird show, like Brooke Sousa is crazy, man. She'll do any show she can get her hands on. She went to South Africa on her dime to do an Arnold, and she wound up winning that. If you want to compete internationally, sometimes that's what you're going to have to do. You have to be really, really hungry to lay out your own cash or find a sponsor who's going to lay that cash out for you, and then, be able to go there and do the show. But if you really love competing, if you love the network, just set your sights on doing really well as an amateur and see your friends at nationals and do your regional contests and spread the love of the sport. I think a lot of people would be happier than trying to make that pro level career. Is really, really difficult to get it to pay off.
Yeah, I think you'll have a lot more fun. And then you kind of get to pick or choose, like this one looks a little bit more fun. And I even just, went back and went from that whole, like, going the route for like the last 3 years of my competing was nationals, Arnold, qualifier, nationals, Arnold, qualifier, nationals, like that whole thing. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of these. I'm only doing those shows because I feel like I have to, not because any of them actually seem fun.
Right.
It feels like an obligation, and what I want to tell people is like none of it really is. Like looking back on it, like I didn't need to do any of those. Maybe one or two, but if I skipped one, in my mind it seemed like everything would be over, but in reality it wouldn't have changed anything. No one would care.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't really impact. It doesn't really affect anything yet. So at this point, you know, you gotta watch out for you and find that work, hobby, life balance. But as far as a weight sport goes, in my opinion, you're gonna have the most fun with this, and it's the most accepting community. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy strongman. Powerlifting is, to me, there's a lot of standoffishness about it. You know, it gets very cliquey. And, you know, weightlifting wasn't even a sport until CrossFit revived it. And it's only come back in the last 5 or 6 years. And again, it doesn't really even have that sense of community. It's very tight knit amongst the guys who are really, really good, and then there's everybody else kind of there taking up their platform space. It feels like when you're at a meet, you know. So strongman is a very welcoming type of place to be in, and you get a lot of cheers for getting a 0.
Oh, you get more cheers than anybody. You know, someone could get a 0 and get the crowd behind them way more than someone going for a world record. We've all seen it. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's the thing, man. I can do some stand up and go out or whatever, and or even broadcasting, and I can tell a joke and it'll bomb, and everybody's like, "Oh, you suck," you know. But I could totally miss a stone. People are like, "You're so awesome. You tried so hard."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, people. It's there's something that's universally recognizable in effort.
Yeah,
you know,
that is very true.
You don't need to know anything else about it. But yeah. So about, you know, the current, you know, kind of state of strongman. We talked about, you know, some of the behind the scenes, how to, you know, grow the sport, grow your own brand. But, you know, you were just at the official strongman games. I couldn't make it, you know, life again.
Right.
I think, you know, and you said on some of your articles for Bar Bend leading up that you think this might be the biggest strongman event ever. And I feel like we're going to look back on that show years from now and be like, oh yeah, this was a turning point. Did it live up to that when you went there?
It was kind of really the most unique contest I've been to. And I've been to a lot of contests, and I've been to 4 or 5 Arnold's, and I've been backstage for a lot of them, and I've been to the Olympia, whatever contest is going to be held there. And I've been to Arnold's, America's Strongest Man, as a broadcaster and as a participant. So when I get to North Carolina, it was a super, super organized. And I lived in North Carolina for 6 years. I'm pretty familiar with the area. So I come in and it's organized. And then, like, the morning went and all the familiar faces were in and out, and everybody makes weight. And I'm talking to them. I come back for rules. So now I'm there at rules, and all of a sudden you're standing there, and I'm with Big Z, Nick Best, Chad Coy's there, Vitas Blakaitis. I'm having a conversation with Colin Bryce. We've got people from all over the world that are in the same room, kind of all on the same page. It felt a lot different than the Arnold did. And it was like a who's who of who had been in strongman for the last 10 years. It was kind of like this big family reunion. But the greatest thing was talking to the athletes. They loved the online qualifier, man. They absolutely loved it. I thought it was a fantastic idea. It went over well. And I think this was kind of the foundation that we're going to see the direction of these large contests go in, is to have online qualifiers where everybody's doing the exact same thing. We can bring people in from all over the world. And then if you have like a pro category where you have a superstar there, I mean, the biggest guy ever in the sport is hanging out eating cupcakes, you know, trying to talk to people. It's pretty amazing. I think it was intimidating for a lot of the athletes. It was just kind of incredible, but it felt very real. You know, the Arnold Women's Pro felt very real, and this felt very real. Like, these are steps forward in the right direction, and we need to continue to build on them. We cannot regress from that point. This was a legitimate world-class strongman competition 3 weeks ago. More legitimate than you could really say of anything else, because the variety of athletes was all there. Everybody was there.
Yeah, it had. I don't think there was too many names missing from any of the categories. It was about as, a couple people injuries here or there, but that's going to be any show, anytime, anywhere.
Yep.
Yep. Did and that's what you say. It can't regress from here. Is my exact point. Is we could look back on this show, 3-5 years from now and be like, okay, this started, but that momentum has to keep going. What Strongman I feel struggled with a lot is there's a lot of shows that promise a lot, even give a lot, but it's not sustainable. I've seen there's shows where, there's good prize money, a couple pros go there, they get a nice check, and then the whole thing folds. We can look at like Fortissimus, for example. It's like you can't overpromise because it's not going to be, sustainable. But then, so this show,
in my opinion, Fortissimus is the greatest strongman contest to ever have happened. In my opinion, I think it legitimately merged the new sport with the old, and the way they did it was incredible. And it's so unfortunate that the money just didn't continue to be there for it. It's sad, because that's what you want. That was the marriage of Arnold and the worlds.
Yeah.
Heavy and athletic at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But it existed for 2 years where World's Strongest Man just celebrated its 40th birthday.
Yep.
I can agree, you can agree, and a lot of people do. It's the greatest, but it just didn't work as a business sense, I guess. I don't know the details on it, but we know it existed, and now it doesn't. But yeah, that's my point, is like this. I feel like the online qualifiers, and I talked to Lynn, a couple times about them, and people can go back and listen to those episodes I did. I think 3 of them, about the whole thing. It wasn't there wasn't as big a turnout as I thought there would be, but I really feel like the next year there will be, because people kind of look at it and they go, I'm not too sure, or I'm not sure if I qualified, if I'd still be able to make the finals. And we saw people that did the online qualifiers did very well. They made day 2, in a couple of the classes. So I feel like no one's good. The following year, I don't think anyone's going to get that. They're just not going to just get a invite because they participated.
No, I think you might see invites go out to the best weight class pros.
They should.
The women probably 5 or 10. I don't think you need to make a pro qualify for that. But I think, again, now the level of competition is going to jump on those online qualifiers. I don't think he did this time. I think Lynn should charge money to enter just the qualifier. I know CrossFit does, right? To have you review their videos, there's a small charge. But as an individual sport, your equipment may be expensive, your travel may be expensive. That's in every individual sport. This is one of the cheapest ones to compete in. If you want to do an Ironman or the Boston Marathon, you're coughing up some money for an entry fee. And there are thousands of athletes there. It's $800 for your ticket to get into the Ironman. $800. Okay, nationals is still $100.
It's a little more. I had to pay. It was like $185 because I paid for winners for California's Strongest Woman. I was like, geez, I didn't think they were gonna jump at $60. But that's
a big increase.
I know.
But the athletes need to get that money back in products and shirts and experience, but you are willing to pay for it when that happens. It makes a huge difference in your experience. And one of the things I do like is when nationals is held in a place. I'll be a little biased here, but Orlando needs to host the nationals. Vegas is always a good choice, where you can take your family and go on vacation and snowball the whole thing. You compete the first weekend, and you have 5, 6, 7 days with your kids.
Or at least you sell it like that.
Yeah,
to
there's a possibility of that happening.
Be like, hey, honey, we can also go here. It doesn't mean it actually ends up happening, but you can get them to sign off. But yeah, I agree. I know for the online qualifiers, Lynn charged a little bit of money. Definitely not enough. I think it was like 15 something to a month to be a member of Official Strongman, and they lowered it for the qualifiers. Like I think under like 5 even, which it should be higher just because I know the amount of time.
Honestly, I don't think $50. I don't think $50 is out of line. To have people watch your videos, rate them, check them. You're getting scored on it. It's going into a spreadsheet. It all requires work, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the people on our end, we got to put food on our tables too. So
yeah,
I think you say, oh, $50, I'm not paying you $50. It's money well spent on an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. But that's the funny part is with the online qualifier. I think it was $5 or so to enter, and people are still calling it a money grab. But you can't afford. I'm like, I know what goes into like building systems and websites, and they're losing money. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and we can't ask promoters to lose money. They won't stay in the business. If a guy's going to do this and continue to lose money, he's not going to continue to make shows, man. It's just not going to happen.
No, it can only be a labor of love for so long.
Yes.
That's just it's the whole thing for a strongman to continue to grow is it needs to continue to grow as an industry. And part of industry is making money, and then more money can go back in. It's just pretty simple.
Yeah.
I can I can help people more if more people buy shirts on Certain Strongman. It's just simple, but you do need your own bills covered first before you can worry about anything else. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward, what are you looking forward to coming up in the world of strongman?
Well, what I see happening is how the women's class has developed over the last 2 years has been nothing short of amazing. I think the numbers that the ladies are putting up are mind blowing, and I see the same thing in men's and women's, that the middleweights are so close to the opens. They're coughing up the extra weight, and that's going to make the difference on a lot of events. I love watching middleweights because it's super athletic, it's super fast, and the athletes have the traditional look, and that's a very marketable thing from a business standpoint. So I see those middle classes growing. I see more dominance too out of the United States. You're going to have your fringe athletes, but we have 300 million people here, man, and it's just a matter of numbers. You're going to see more and more guys from the USA in the international contest, and that's been the trend for the last 5 to 7 years. More guys from the United States are appearing at Worlds and on stage at the Arnold. So you've kind of got this USA dominance thing. We're splitting the sports with the Northern Europeans, the British and the Icelandic, countries are kind of the hotbeds for this. And it makes sense because in Europe, if you look at Iceland or England, an indoor type of training thing is good for 8-9 months out of the year. You're only outside in the summer. So this is a sport that leads to that mentality of, hey, it's okay to be inside and train, go out, run a medley, but you're doing a lot of platform work indoors. So I see the sport continuing to grow along those lines. I don't think the weights are going to get much heavier. They've gotten a little bit heavier in the last 2 to 3 years, but there was that big jump in the 2000s, late 2000s, and you get some outliers in there. But for the most part, I think we found what's going to work if you want to standardize weights what you're going to be able to expect to see at a contest. So I think that helps with athletes set goals, and okay, these are going to be lighter weights. I should be at nationals level by doing these level weights. Mm-hmm. And there's not going to be the big jumps. Eddie Hall's massive deadlift is being paced, and he said the other day he's done. He's finishing 2018. He's probably not doing worlds, and he's going to do bodybuilding and yada, yada, yada. But, he's smart to recognize deadlifting 1,100 pounds almost killed him. You know, there are limits to the human body, and this isn't Olympic lifting and it isn't powerlifting. It's not a 1 rep max sport. So we kind of need to know where the weights are going to be, where the athletes in that category can move them and do them. If you only have 3 guys in the whole world that are going to be in the top 3 spots every time, it doesn't make for very good sport. You know, if it's just Thor and Z and Shaw, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 every time, I don't even want to watch that. You know, so you know it's gotta keep that athleticism in there, and it can't be a 1 rep max thing. I don't like max events. A lot of time it takes so long. They're not fan friendly. So I hope there's less of those in 2018.
Yeah, and I feel like it's partially our fans' fault because we all called for, oh, this is too light. The local shows were getting, similar weights to Worlds, but we don't understand, the unique conditions that Worlds is done under and stuff like that. And I know, like, even myself and, a lot of people now looking back, we're like, maybe those days where, they were doing a axle clean and press and Marius went against Poundstone and they're going like 11 and 12. It kind of looked better, like, to be, honest. Yeah. Like, that was a pretty fun, spectating. Doing more of the front carries, more medleys, more max distance carries to mix it up, I think is important because keeping that athleticism in it and making sure it doesn't become, powerlifting with odd objects. I feel, Eddie and some of the promoters did really well to kind of hype all that up and deliver because it gets everyone else involved. It got the powerlifting community. It got like, the younger generation of, lifters that might just follow stuff on YouTube and they don't really understand the toll lifting that much weight takes when you're 20. Like they haven't had the decade of heavy deadlifts where they go, warming up for that, gearing up for that again is going to really take it out of you. It's not sustainable to see those same athletes compete more frequently at more shows. If we do go that route, you're going to see the top athletes like they do now competing 2-3 times a year. And, the fans don't want that either. So something's got to give. It has to get a little bit more where you can do it like a sport where it's, somewhat around here and you could do it once a month and mix it in with your training to do more shows.
Well, what people don't understand, and it's hard to understand, is how big the top 3 to 5 guys are in person physically when you meet them. I've always been considered a big guy. Right now I'm super cardiovascularly fit. I'm 6'1", 245 pounds, and I'm in my mid-40s. I'm big. I'm like, linebacker size. But you stand me next to Z. He's got 100 pounds on me in 3 inches, and he's one of the smaller top pros now. And he's physically just larger and intimidating. I still have a normal human frame. Yeah. The guy's head is massive. When you've met, you're friends with Rob, and then you've got Brian and Thor. And when I stand next to Brian and we're having a 2-minute conversation, I feel like a child. I know I could never compete with this guy. And that's kind of crushing when the only recognition the sport has is on that very, very, very top level. And 99% of the athletes will never be that physical size.
No, it's impossible.
Just not a human possibility. And so in order to continue to grow the sport, I'm going to continue to reiterate what I say is middleweights, lightweights in the United States is a fan-friendly thing, as maybe part of your county fair. Get it in there and have it going on as a sideshow. Incorporate it into other stuff. I'd like to see more promoters put these involved in fitness expo weekends and whatnot. Just having, East Smithville's strongest man in a park on a Sunday is going to get the athletes and their families there. And that's nice, but it's a picnic. It's not a contest. It's got a whole different feel to it. So when you tie your event into something that's greater than you are, you've got an automatic fan base built in, and the fans can see how great these athletes are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember like I went to World's Strongest Man in 2007. I think, I started, getting into the sport right around that year when it was in LA. And you're seeing all the guys, and before you're like, I bet Marius is crazy to see in person just because you've seen him on TV and it translates to television. But I remember I saw Phil Pfister and I was like, what the hell is that? Like, that was the most physically, like, out of everyone. He just had like his frame. He didn't have like more, a bigger bicep or anything, but I was just like, how is a skeletal structure that big? Like, and it doesn't translate as much to TV as when you're standing right next to someone. It's
right.
just like,
it's an amazing thing, dude.
It's a different species.
It's great. Like, yeah, when that video came out of Thor sparring with Conor McGregor last year, and people were like, "Oh, look at the little guy," and Thor, you couldn't hit him or anything. And Thor afterwards was like, "Guys, I could literally kill him if I hit him." He's like, you got to be careful at that size, and people still don't know, about. It's when my hand goes physically inside one of these guys' hands and I can't see it anymore. I'm like, holy crap. Nick Best has got some massive hands. Ken McClellan's got some massive hands. It makes a big difference on the carries. It makes a big difference on the yoke. You've got more surface area. And when you're looking at these guys, you're like, that's a different kind of human. That's a whole nother dude right there.
Yeah, I remember, I would say I shook Mark Felix's hand, but I more grabbed like one, maybe two fingers. And it was one of the more awkward experiences of my life, just because you're like, oh, hey, Mark, and he knew who I was, and you go to shake his hand, you go, oh, I just feel really uncomfortable right now. And I'm sure he gets that all the time, and it's nothing. He's just like, I have small hands, even for, someone my height and everything, but it's like I don't think I physically could shake his hand. It's just different, like.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, so we're really talking about two different sports, We're talking about the WSM, the Pro Arnold sport, and then the one that we've really all grown to love, which is our thing,
Yeah.
It's a United States thing first, and then it's made its way across the world.
Yeah, the whole,
so
strongman for every man
weight
kind of
classing
thing.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic. And we talked about this when I saw you earlier this year, how CrossFit has really started to borrow from strongman.
Oh, 100%.
And it's getting more and more, man. And no, I don't want to see anybody do something for 10 minutes. I really appreciate the effort that goes into that, but I get a little bored. So that strongman medley they had this year was really kind of interesting. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, you take out the handstand walks and it's 100% a strongman medley.
Right. So they'll throw that in there to break it up, but we all know what it is.
Sure.
I mean, it's to me, it's really been strongman light, and it's still going into that direction. And I think you're going to see more of that. They're giving you this token first day cardio thing that they've got to do, but other than that, it's basically now gymnastics and strongman.
Yeah, well, it's they kind of did what strongman did, if you think about it, where they went heavy with the weightlifting to a point where it's like, okay, we kind of get where the limited this is, and strongman's done that recently with the deadlift, etc., with the static events, and it's like, how do you switch it up to keep it entertaining and new? And the best way to keep something entertaining is to kind of you change what the events are, so you can start pushing the limits that way. Add a little bit more. I'm sure you as an athlete, you get your pro card in strongman, and then it gets to a point where gaining anything is almost impossible. You get to a level, it's probably a lot easier to kind of, shift focused physically and athletically to a different goal versus getting 0.5% better at strongman after a point. And sports can kind of do the same to keep it fun and interesting.
What was disappointing for me was when I got my pro card, there was literally one pro show a year for pros.
Yeah.
And it was America's Strongest Man Nationals. And that was it. So now I'm back competing as a heavyweight, but I've also got to keep my weight in check. I didn't want it to get over like 260 pounds, 265 pounds. So you're a little hamstrung, you know, and that's tough when you're going with guys who aren't worried, you know, about that extra weight.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it was disappointing to get that pro card in some sense and then have that. And then Scott Porter put on some contests, which was nice as an invitational. That was a lot of fun. So, I mean, we had America's Strongest Man for 105 kilos, I think in 2009 was held in Maine, and we literally had 2 athletes go.
Wow.
2 people went because it was like, you know, a impossible plane ticket and then a 4-hour car ride in the middle of nowhere, and it was at some fair. And I was like, man, I didn't sign up for this. You know, I want to get together with the guys and I want to rock and roll. And, you know, that's a crazy group of people too. Strongman, like I missed the after party in North Carolina, but I hear it was epic.
Yeah.
And they're willing to let loose after hours, big time. So it's fun when you get those people in a room, man.
Yeah, it gets fun for sure. Going forward, like, you know, you talked about you doing that stuff with RA Muscle. They've put some good money up towards some shows previously, you know, been a big help to the community, but like you said, there's not really anything up there yet, and I really don't even know what it is. What's the plan on rolling this all out for RA, and kind of
right.
you hinted at it before, but you know, just give me the laydown.
Okay, and that's partially because I can't talk about a lot of things
Sure.
that we're doing. You know, but okay, so if we have a place to showcase the athletes, that's going to be our website. We have more in the works than that. I mean, this is a $1 million business, so it's a legit, real thing. And so the athletes are going to be able to go onto RA and build their profiles and reach out to sponsors and kind of get word out about themselves. It's kind of going to be, you know, like you'd almost want to think about it as like a TV station for strongman and other sports. We're going to be doing some work with MMA. I think that's a really good tie-in for strongman. You've got similar audiences there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working with one of the bigger productions, which again, I can't say who it is, but we're going to give the athletes that platform that they've been looking for to get their information out to people. It's hard to get noticed now in the Instagram sea and the Facebook world. So, I mean, this should definitely help, because not only are you going to be able to go there, but we're going to be promoting our own website and we're paying to promote it. There's going to be ads. We're going to be driving traffic to it, you know? So it's one of those things where it's completely focused on the athletes, because when we have a great crop of athletes, everybody can make money. You know, if the athletes are recognizable, promoters are going to want to get into the sport, sponsors are going to want to get into the sport, and then there's going to be money there. And that's the only thing the sport is lacking right now, is really a viable source of income for the people who are trying to make a living out of this.
Yeah, it's keeping the professionals from truly being professionals, even though they're that quality of athlete. It's just not there. It's kind of like the early days of MMA in a while, like very early days. But, you know, a couple people here or there, you know, it can grow. It just takes a lot of money. You know, that took, you know, a couple billionaires wasting $40 million before they saw a return.
Yes, it did. I mean, they bought the UFC, I think, for $1 million.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
And then they just had to keep. Yeah, they just poured money into it for years and years and years. So that's the position we're willing to take. You know, as a basically an umbrella for promotions, is we're going to put a lot of money into this and promote. And we know the product's good. We know the people are good. So it's going to take off. We're missing the flash, boom, bang of fighting. You know, I mean,
sure,
fighting's always going to have those blight faces and those crazy knockouts. I think there's some different ways we have to do stuff. And that's why I like produce shows, high quality shows, people on the mic who know the athletes. I can't tell people, you know, and I'm not trying to say what I do is hard, because what I do, I absolutely love. But if the strong person athlete knew how much time I spent looking at everybody's social media, so I know your name, I know your lifts, I know about you, so I can give an interesting presentation when I'm calling on the air. You know, without any help, I basically sit there and talk sometimes for 6 hours, and I've got to know the athletes, know where they're from, and have something interesting to say about them. So if you were a fly on the wall and me when I'm driving around in my truck, you'd think I'm nuts because I'm constantly talking out loud to myself about people in the sport. And I'm sitting here going, well, what can I say? You know, just as an example, it's like crazy Andrew Clayton is going to be coming up to the deck next, you know?
Yeah.
But Andrew, I know personally, he is not all there, you know, and he knows it. He's a nutty individual. That's his angle. But if you come from outside the sport and you're just on the microphone, you don't know anything about this guy. You don't have anything to say. And the sport misses it. You want to know who these people are. I want to peek into their lives and see who they are. So the person at home wants to know, hey, you know, Donna Moore's got kids at home.
Yeah.
You know, she's got a boyfriend who handles her stuff, and she's a nurse, and she works 40 hours a week, and she's here kicking every gym bro's ass in America. She decimate any guy who works out in Gold's Gym, and it's a working mother, you know? So if you don't know that and you can't tell athletes about it and people don't know about that, there's no bridge, you know? There's no connection. And so really I think the important thing is going to be building that bridge through RA and high-quality stuff. You know, we need more quality out there, high-end cameras, high-end recording equipment, and the production values are high. Rogue has done a fantastic job with that. Their Stoneland video is one of the best documentaries I've seen on anything, you know, not just in the sport, but just in anything overall. And more of those are going to help put butts in the seats and eyes on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming. How about I say that? All that is coming.
Sounds awesome. And, you know, if people want to, you know, start looking and, you know, where to wait for it, it's ramuscle.com. It's ramuscle on Instagram and everything.
RAmusclepower.com. Yeah, awesome. It's ramuscle all over the place. You know, so you just look us up like that. And, you know, I tell people, don't ever be afraid to reach out to me. I'd love to interview, like you do, more people. You and I have different styles. We talk about different stuff, and I think it's good. You know, I mean, there has to be some variety in the sport, and everything can't come from one source because then you're getting into this like crazy communist news thing, and it's nutty.
Yeah. Hey, if there's, you know, I'm glad that I'm not the only one willing to do it. At least there's two. You know, two's better. I can't do it all. That's all there is to it. People ask, like, why don't you do this? And I go, I'm busy enough. This is about all I can do.
Yeah.
So I've caught, you know, some of the Facebook Live videos you've been putting out with some of the, you know, athletes leading up to and after official Strongman games. And I enjoyed them. They're good talks. And, you know, you can check that out. And you're, of course, you know, Michael Gill on Facebook, Pro Strongman on Instagram. To follow your stuff. Anything else you like to add?
No, man. It's just I appreciate what you've done for the sport and how you've brought people into it. I think everybody does, and you probably don't get thanked enough. So, you know, just a general thank you for that. And, you know, if you're listening to this and you either want to get in touch with me or starting Strongman, reach out to us. You know, just literally reach out, tell us your story. Maybe you've got something interesting, and, you know, we're looking for content, and you can provide some of that. So if you don't want to make it yourself, get a hold of us, you know, and we're always looking for something. You're probably not too small, and if you've got something interesting about you, we can make it work. You know, there's going to be something there. But compete and just love it and take it seriously, but not too seriously.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate, you know, the kind words, you know, especially someone when I was coming up in the sport, checked out some of your stuff, learned from it. You know, appreciate you saying that. And I think that's the thing. You just keep paying it forward once you get you know, once you, if people do start to pay attention to you, give back to them and, you know, just keep everything rolling and, you know, just do what you can. So it's awesome talking to you. Thanks for coming on today. I'm going to run, do all the other stuff we got to do. Appreciate everyone listening.
All right, man.
Appreciate everyone listening, and we'll catch you again next week.